Hello, 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 and welcome to another Talking Bollocks, your favourite podcast. This is the Bollocast. I am your host, Howard H. Smith. I am lead singer in UK thrash band Acid Rain. I also does this here podcast. I also do stand-up comedy. I fucking used to. As Keith Platt, and he's available at keithplatt.co.uk. What am I talking about? And on top of all that, I am now the host of the Motorcast, the official Motorhead podcast. You can search Motorcast in any of your podcast players. It is now available. Episode 1 is up, although it's numbered number 2. Number 1 was the trailer. Number 2 is the first proper episode. So go and have a dig in there. There's going to be more to come from that. There's more to come from me. There's more to come from if you sign up on Patreon and get extra Talking Bollocks, should you want that. Yes, that's right. There's a portion of extra bollocks every month and an exclusive radio show and loads of behind-the-scenes bits and pieces. And you get to ask questions of your favourite big stars. And we get to do a live Zoom sort of party chat piss about podcast once a month as well. So if you want to sign up at Patreon, it's patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. $5 a month and you get all of that shit. And you get this here podcast free, early. It's always free, but you get it early. You get it before everybody else, and you get your own podcast. You get the chance to ask questions of the interviewees. Anyway, that's enough of all of that stuff, isn't it, eh? Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to everybody. It's a big, big welcome to everybody. Except if you're one of these people who've been really pissing me off at the moment. I've just been out shopping this morning, so sorry, you're getting this fresh. But I am sick and tired of walking into places and seeing people who haven't got their mask over their fucking nose. The fucking mask is shaped to go over your nose and mouth. Now, if you're listening to this and you're going, oh, but Howard, I wear glasses. So do I, you daft bastard. Right? You put your glasses over the mask and then they don't steam up. It's that simple. It took me about 30 seconds to work that out. So sort it out. Yeah? Your chin is not endangering anybody. There is no need for a face mask that goes over the mouth and the chin. The chin area is not communicating any disease. Well, it is. It's fucking disgusting. Beards are full of all sorts of rubbish, but it's not corona, right? The idea of a mask is to cover your nose and mouth. Nose and mouth. If it is not covering your nose, you are doing 50% of the job. You have failed. It's to stop droplets coming out of the nose and mouth into the air. That is nose and mouth, you stupid fucking cunts! How could you not fucking know this? How can you not be walking around and seeing everybody else with the mask on properly, you daft bastard? Really? How can you possibly walk around and think that it's okay to have your mask below your nose, you ignoramus, you selfish twat? Oh, well, I don't like the way it feels. Oh, well, it stops me. Shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ, good job you weren't around in the Second World War when we were getting fucking bombed. Oh, these things falling from the sky, it's a bit, it's put a real crimp in my day. Come on. Sort it out, people. And if you see somebody wearing a mask incorrectly, you don't have to be an arsehole like me and go up and go, oi, dickhead. I don't. I try not to. Just go up and say, actually, you know, do you just... Because some people, maybe, they just don't know what they're doing. But that's an excuse, if you ask me. You can't walk around with a mask on your mouth and fucking chin, seeing most other people wearing it correctly and think you're doing the right thing. And whatever excuse it is that is in your head right now for not covering your nose, it's not good enough, just so we're clear on that. It's not good enough, because if you have to wear a mask, if you haven't got any kind of underlying health conditions that means you don't have to wear a mask, then wear it properly, you fucking idiot. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with fucking music, has it? But, as some of you know, sometimes when I start the podcast, I might have just you might get some residual bullshit that's been kicking around in my life, and I'm afraid there it is. Right up front, it's mask dickheads. Those people who are wearing masks incorrectly. Dear me. And just to be clear, if you are wearing a mask over your... And these people do exist. The people who are wearing their mask entirely over their chin. Now, there is a special place in suffering for these people. I mean, they are so badly informed. All they know is they're supposed to wear a mask somewhere. They're just not sure somewhere. Well, it's called a face covering. How about if I just cover my chin up? That's a big part of my face. That should be okay. You people, oh dear, into the dustbin of history with you. Get in the sea, all of you. Anyway, I do apologise. What's been happening in the world of metal this month? I wish I could be more upbeat, but we've just lost Eddie Van Halen, and I mean, what I seem to be saying this a lot recently because genuine legends have been dying. But the word legend is thrown around quite literally, like, oh mate, you're a legend because somebody got you a bag of crisps. No, you're fucking not. You're not a legend. You're a nice guy. Thanks, whatever. Legend, Eddie Van Halen. I mean, somebody who influenced... I mean, he just didn't influence guitarists. He influenced people to start playing the guitar. He created a whole style. Yeah. I mean, legend, and that important word for me in any part of the genre. He was an innovator, and innovators are what keeps our music going and keeps it exciting, keeps it vital, keeps it moving forwards. And wow, just what a guy. And funnily enough, I saw some of David Lee Roth's social media, and he tweeted out a picture of the two of them just saying, wow, what a lovely road it's been. And David Lee Roth is getting shit from people because they don't consider that to be emotional enough. They don't consider that to be enough. Like all of these people who never met Eddie Van Halen and never met David Lee Roth and were never in a room with them and were completely unaware of the dynamic of friendship between the two. But they've decided that it's... what a load of bollocks. What an absolute load of bollocks. Really? Someone's grieving is not good enough for you now? Fucking hell. The balls, the tits on these people. Honestly. Just fucking fuck off. He was a public figure, but you didn't know him privately. Dave did. They had a relationship. It's not like he's posted a picture of, saying, "Oh, I'm glad he's dead." He's clearly upset. And in case you've never dealt with grief before, everyone deals with it differently. And wow, somebody isn't grieving on social media enough for you the way you wanted. Jesus Christ. Pathetic. Anyway, having lost Eddie, some good news. We're getting power up from AC/DC. That's right. AC/DC, who, if you were from up north in the 80s, it was just DC, which has really annoyed me. Like the other two letters were such a pain in the ass to say. So there's a new AC/DC. It's DC, innit? No, fuck off. AC/DC album, Power Up. And, I mean, what can I say other than comeback of the year, nay, comeback of the decade, may have to be Phil Rudd. That's right, Phil Rudd, who was kicked out of AC/DC, who was arrested with crystal meth in his house, who was selling his house. You were seeing him being filmed on TV in Australia, coming out of prison, and on all sorts. And he appeared to be absolutely at rock bottom and just in the bin. He's done. No, he is back and he is playing on the new AC/DC album. So fair play. Gotta give it up. What else has been going on? Well, Burton has left Fear Factory, and Yeah, it seems like he's definitely left. I read an interview, I listened to an interview with Dino, and it was really funny because during it, he says, "Well, the door is not going to stay open for Burton to come back to Fear Factory forever." And I just thought, but he's just fucking left. I'm sure there's nothing further from his mind than joining. Yeah, let's be clear, joining fucking Fear Factory again in the same week that he's just left. Give it up, Dino. He's out. You're on your own. Some other great news, not that that's great news, but some other great news in general is there's a new Killer Be Killed album coming out. Oh, yes! Reluctant Hero is the name of the album. There are 2 singles out already. I am deliberate. I've listened to them both once. Sound like Killer Be Killed, so that's good for me. But that's it. I don't want to go any further because it's like, yep, that's solid. That's it. I don't want to over listen to those songs because otherwise I find when I get the album, I just end up skipping the songs I had as singles before the album, and I don't want to do that. I want to listen to it all together. So there you go. On the 20th of November, we are getting the new Killer Be Killed album, Reluctant Hero. And if you want to check out 2 singles, they are on YouTube. So what else has been going on? New Exodus is going to have a Rick Hunolt solo on it. How fucking cool is that? How fucking cool is that? We're going to have Rick on the fucking album. I really like the look of that. I really do. He's a top man. He really is. So yeah, and apparently it's going to be crushing and all the rest of it. I mean, you know. What else has been going on? Oh, here is another sort of Jesus Christ, we're desperate. Former Metallica bassist Jason Newsted buys Skaneateles. I've got no idea what that. I wish I'd fucking planned this better. Buys this house, New York home, for $6.1 million, right? And that's it. There's obviously there's no quotes, and that's literally the end of it. Within 3 sentences, Blabbermouth is doing what Blabbermouth does, and is saying, back in 2017, and so within 3 lines of type, that is back into a story from 2017. So nothing to see here, folks. If you see that headline, don't bother with it like I did, made a note of it. What a dickhead. Okay, only 2 more stories to cover. First one is Tool frontman Maynard James Keenan had COVID-19 in February, is still dealing with residual effects. Yeah. He says, I didn't want to run around screaming that he had COVID-19, but it's real. And there's after effects. I had to go through some major medications to undo the residual effects, and I'm still coughing. There's still lung damage. So he also added that several of his friends also tested positive for the coronavirus. Very not old people, young people, in shape, runners who contracted it as well, he said. And they're still dealing with some of the after effects. I lost a few family members. After he's asked if he's feeling all right now, he says, well, no, I still have the cough every other day, and I have these coughing fits because my lungs are still damaged at the tips, and I just got over the inflammation that was going on with my wrists and hands. So there you go. Wow, it looks like he's going to make it, but I've just a lot of respect there, a lot of respect for the fact that he went through it. There was no big announcement. And he's just kind of been very private about it. And I do kind of like that. And then, I mean, yes, he's mentioned it in that interview, but he's not gone on about it. He's mentioned it because he was asked. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Doesn't make up for the last Tool album being a snooze fest or having a drum solo on it. To wait 12 years for a fucking drum solo. You are kidding me. And finally, and this ties in quite nicely, we get Michael Sweet from Stripers. No musician influenced me as much as Eddie Van Halen. Well, there you go. One day, Michael, you might actually write a decent song. So, along with all of the Eddie Van Halen tributes, it's been a colossal kind of month in metal, really. It really, really has. All sorts of stuff going on. And obviously, you know, we're still not getting anywhere from getting back to playing live shows and stuff like that. I mean, it looks like there's gonna be a couple of boxing matches in the UK, and they're going to allow 4,000 people in the O2. They're going to allow some people in the at the Royal Albert Hall in London. Still nobody at football matches. So for where small venues are concerned, the kind that Acid Rain would play, yeah, I mean, jury's still out on when those motherfuckers are going to reopen. But they are going to reopen. We are going to get back, people. We fucking are. And I'll be honest with you, I was offered quite a serious interview with quite a serious person for the podcast, and I turned it down. And the reason I turned it down was that it was all about, you know, how the music business is getting fucked over and blah blah, and entertainments in general and blah. And the thing is, the reason I turned it down, I'll be completely honest with you, is A, it's so fucking depressing. B, I know people out there, you are listening to this podcast and you're struggling. You know, you're earning less. You're having to use savings for fucking paying bills and shit like that. You're looking for a job. You're on the fucking absolute breadline. And as much as I do think it is obviously terrible what's happening to the arts, it's happening to us all. And I just think that listening to a podcast of people, of artists moaning when you've got very little money coming in, I just think it's personally, I think it's a bit disrespectful. And I have to say, I spend a lot of time shouting at the television at the moment at various charities for fucking everything, from crippled donkeys to kids in the middle of nowhere with no water, to you name it. It's all about banging on, oh, give us some money, and I'm sat there thinking, fucking hell, give me some money. I'm fucking brassic right now. This is not easy for any of us. And the last thing I want you to do is get that feeling with the podcast, that, you know, you're listening to the podcast and going, oh, fucking hell, poor you. What about the rest of us? We're all in the same fucking boat. So I've steered away from it. And I've trying to keep things positive, says the man who opened with a 4-minute rant about stupid cunts who can't wear masks properly, you chimps. But hey, you know, I am constantly trying to keep it positive and keep it light. If you could see what I could see at the moment, I'm sat in my lounge, I'm looking out to my balcony, I've got 3 parakeets eating food there, arguing with each other, and before you think, fucking hell, where does he live, a zoo, or where do I live, you know, Florida? Neither. It's just that with the with lockdown and the change in the environment, parakeets have suddenly, I mean, they were always already in the area, but they've suddenly decided to start feeding from my balcony. But there you go. Anyway, that was a fucking tangent, wasn't it, tangent fans? Did you enjoy that, tangent fans? That was a proper tangent. So now, I've already mentioned Michael Sweet, and in this next interview, I'll be mentioning him again, but not straight away. This is a conversation I had with somebody who can only be described in the world of metal as a lifer. And that, in fact, I was talking to Paul Waller from OMS and the Different Times podcast last night for an interview, which is coming up later this month. And he said, I was talking about Dom, and he went, oh, he's a lifer. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So if this guy's love of metal and music and dedication doesn't give you a warm glow inside, then you're fucking dead. And when the podcast finishes, you should probably go to hospital and be checked for a pulse. Here we are. Just a few weeks ago, this is my friend Dom Lawson and I having a chat. Oh yeah, that's much better. Right, we can just pretend that the interview started here and we've been talking for hours.
We have.
Yeah,
yeah, that's fine, mate. I mean, honestly, I feel a bit of a fraud because, I don't even listen to podcasts really, so I feel a bit ridiculous being on one. But you know,
well, mate, look,
you know, but it's your choice.
No,
you're not to blame if it goes wrong.
Well, if the amount of subscriber questions that I've got for you is anything to go by, people really want to hear from you.
Well, that's weird. Okay.
Well,
I'm not. I'm not ungrateful. I do appreciate that a lot. It just feels a bit bizarre, really. But anyway, no, carry on.
Well, look. You're the first guest that I've ever had on the show who went on Jim Will Fix It. So.
Yes, I can claim that. True.
Yeah.
They can't take that away from me. Even though he turned out to be a monstrous paedophile, I've still got a gold disc on my wall, which most people haven't got. So that's
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, one thing that I just wanted to start with, and that was, you fucking hate Striper.
Well, you know what? I mean, obviously they're incredibly oversensitive, bless them, as religious people tend to be. Hugely defensive about their preposterous opinions of.
Oh, absolutely. There's no sense of humour involved in religion.
No, absolutely. But the review I wrote. I mean, yes, I could have sat there crafting it for 3 hours to make sure I was totally fair to Striper. But it's Striper. Even in the 80s, they had the music was all right. Those first 2 or 3 albums, they're okay. But once you sit there listening to the music and they're telling you how lovely it is to go to church, it just winds me up. It just rubs me up the wrong way. And to be honest, the music they're making now, this new album, that I didn't slag it off that badly, to be honest. But anyway, it's not nowhere near exciting enough musically to distract you from the fact that you're being told that Christianity is a good idea. Which, in my opinion, which is what reviews are all about, it isn't.
But also the thing is, let's be honest, right? If they were a naturecore band and they were banging on about, the trees are lovely and you should go and build a tree house and live in one and change your life, you would also go, look, this album's all right, but I can't buy into this bollocks that they're going on about, and it overshadows the music. So sorry, but you're allowed to do that when it's people talking about building a tree house, but you're not allowed to do that when it's people about God's house.
Yeah, that's it, and not just music journalists, but a lot of people in media generally are expected to kind of show this respect for religious beliefs that isn't reciprocated. I don't believe in God. I think it's an absolute nonsense, and then people need to fucking grow up. But at the same time, I'll, stand and fight for people's right to believe any nonsense they want to, as long as it doesn't hurt other people.
Yes.
But the issue is that it does hurt other people, and that it's dishonest and fucking horrible. It really kind of winds me up. I can feel my blood boiling now, and so to have heavy metal ruined by it, it's like, I mean, can you just fuck off? You've got your own terrible music to listen to, please. Don't do that,
Yeah. Well, go and
listen to the Jonas Brothers, or whatever,
Well, you're preaching to the choir here, mate. I do. I have an atheist tattoo, so
Excellent. I mean, obviously, I'm a hypocrite because I like Trouble, but it's the difference is that those Trouble albums absolutely rip. Striper do not rip by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
And when you've got there's a title of one of the songs that really made I know spat my coffee out. I think it's Let's Make Love Great Again or something.
Oh my
God. And it's
God.
like, you've conflated a bunch of things there which aren't reflecting well on you,
Absolutely.
Also, I want my heavy metal songs to be about Satan and war and how awful everything is, not Jesus. Come on.
Yeah, well, and to be honest, I mean, if any band keep banging on about one particular topic, it gets boring. Whether it's Striper, or whether it's any satanic band you care to name.
Well, that's it. If that's all they've got, then I think a lot of people, I certainly do like bands that bang on about nothing but Satan, but you kind of zone out, and it's more about the music in many ways. You're not reading the lyrics to see what they're, what's Glenn Benson, what's his view on Christianity this week? Because I think we know. Do you know? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not. I don't need to check out his developed thoughts on it, But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about it really rubbed me up the wrong way. And also, who cares? Apparently, and I don't know because I never read them, but apparently there's loads of people fucking ripping into me and all sorts on the Blabbermouth comment section. And it makes me chuckle but why do they think I would read it?
Well, I think, I don't think any keyboard warriors are aware of that. I think they just, and also I think, Striper managed to, well, not managed to, but basically responded to a review of their album and
Yeah.
I found the wording of their response. I found things in the wording of their response far more worrying than anything that you'd written in the review, because they were starting to try and change it into some sort of religious persecution narrative. It's a fucking album review, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's funny. I had some American Striper fan sent me a request to contact me on Instagram. You know, only one actually. I'm quite pleased I haven't had loads, but just the one. And he was basically having a go at me and saying, you know, you should keep your opinions out of your reviews. And I was thinking, well, I think you've fundamentally misunderstood the purpose of a review there, my friend. You know, like...
Well, shouldn't Striper keep their opinions out of their music then?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's just a nonsense, isn't it? You know, I can write whatever the hell I like. You know, if you don't like it, then don't trust me as a source of opinion on music. That's fine. You know, if our tastes fundamentally converge and it's just awful and everything I say is rubbish, then fine. There are people like that for me in magazines in this country. You know, I won't bother reading their reviews because I don't care what they think. You know, and that's absolutely fine. But to think that I have to, you know, hold back on something I'm really strongly opinionated about because it might upset a bunch of Christians. I mean, really?
Yes, it doesn't sound to have affected you too deeply.
Oh no, well that's it. I don't read the comments. You know, I just made a conscious decision a few years ago not to get off most social media. All I've got now is Instagram, which is harmless enough for me so far anyway. Yeah. And I don't get bombarded with people calling me a cunt because that would be weird on Instagram. But on Twitter, you know, that's what it turns into. And I don't have a face, but you know, just the less of that, the less of that stuff that I have, the better my mental health is all round. And one thing I definitely don't do is read comments underneath things I've written. You know, I've told you what I think, so I'm not going to engage in an argument about it. You know, if you disagree, then that's unfortunate, but move on, you know.
Yeah, basically.
You know, don't, you know, either go and buy the Striper album, which incidentally isn't very good, or, you know, or don't. You know, I'm not telling people what to think, I'm telling you what I think. There is a difference. Well,
you've been at this long enough, really, to kind of have your own sort of, your own processes and your own rules, and, you know, that's, you pretty much, you know, I mean... You know, I'm not decrying anybody's right to reply, but reviews have never been about replying.
No.
It's just about one. No. You know, the label always used to say to us, and still does to this day, it's just one person's opinion.
Yeah, that's it. You know, and you know, sometimes you might feel, you know, if a particular band releases 3 albums and they all get slagged off in a particular magazine, then I can understand and get paranoid and think, well, you know, what have this magazine got against us? But to be honest, 99 times out of 100, that's because your music's fucking dreadful. You know, like it's you know, it's not a conspiracy. Just sometimes there's a consensus about these things. You know, but yeah, I don't know. After 20 years of doing it, I do feel really old saying that. 21 years of doing it. I feel I've done a fairly good job of, broadly speaking, being always as positive as possible about metal and what's going on in metal, and supporting bands as much as I can, and not just writing, you know, snarky reviews to slag things off to make myself sound clever. You know, I mean, I have done that because it's good fun, but I would say the majority of everything I've done is about telling people that metal's fucking great. You know, really, it's no more complicated than that. You know. Yeah,
well, like you say, and that is. You know, that's ultimately your job, which is great.
Yeah. Well, it's half my... I'm only part-time these days, you see. That's the tragedy of the modern age. But, yeah, it is what people know I do, anyway. So, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Right, okay. So, fair enough.
It's nothing creepy, don't worry. I'm not like a burglar.
So what's happening to Oath at the moment?
Well, nothing really, or nothing at the moment, because you know, we haven't done anything for a couple of years. We took a break because we're both knackered, and Jim, bless him, has a proper job, and he works as a teacher, you know, so he's got a lot of commitments and time consumed by that. And I did force him to do a lot of stuff over quite a long period of time. The poor sod, you know, it is kind of my baby in terms of writing the songs and all that, you know, feeding my pathetic ego and all the rest of it. But hopefully at some point we'll do something else. It's it's not logistically possible at the moment, really. But you know, we have got a bunch of songs that we wanted to record for another album, but as always, it's going to take us about 15 years to do it, I imagine. But failing that, if anybody wants a bass player that's really lazy and smokes too much weed, just let me know. You know, I'm sporadically available.
You've just described every bass player ever.
I know, that's the problem there. They're two a penny. Yeah.
You bloody cliche.
Idle fuckers who couldn't be bothered to learn a proper instrument. Yeah.
So look, one thing I wanted to do was just sort of kind of go way back to the beginning, and how you got into writing. You know, because you know, is it something that you pursued, that you knew you wanted to do, and you just hounded everybody? Did you fall into it?
The latter, really. I'm not, you know, as people who know me will probably tell you, I'm not exactly somebody that's plagued by furious levels of ambition. You know, it's but I kind of, well, how did it happen? I suppose I was at university between 94 and 97, and then after that, the first job I got, I was working at the House of Commons in Westminster in the library as like a, you know, kind of civil servant of a sort, not technically a civil servant, but, you know, working in moving paperwork around and shuffling paper clips, you know. And while I was doing that, the internet was kind of starting to be a thing. You know, I mean, that was the first time I encountered using the internet in the way that we used to do it now, was when I started working at the House of Commons, because obviously they had it, you know, and that was fairly mind-blowing. And I don't know, I've always been obsessed with music, and I've always been, you know, as big-headed as it sounds, I've always been good at writing. That was the one thing I was good at school, you know. And I just thought, well, you know, people are setting up these weird things called websites. Why don't I do that just for a laugh, you know? And one of my friends was a web designer, as, you know, nerdy people tend to be. You know, obviously the sensible people are all web designers and have made thousands, and obviously I decided to be a music journalist and earned about 30p over a 20-year period. But, you know, but still, he set me up a website, just, you know, a very basic page, but for album reviews. And then, I was really into doing it, so it started to expand me trying to kind of, I think the main thing I did was like a comprehensive Earache Records. You know, I reviewed every album that had been put out on Earache Records. This is, you know, in the days before Earache had turned into a country rock label. You know, and it was pretty comprehensive, and obviously Earache found out about it. You know, all this frothing, fairly naive hyperbole about, you know, Napalm Death and Carcass Records. And by all accounts, Kerrang were looking for new writers, and someone at, I think it was a wonderful lady called Sarah Watson, who's probably called something else now, but Sarah something, who recommended me to Kerrang. And so that was how I remember getting a phone call while I was at work in the House of Commons. And I think it was, hello, are you free to go and review a Cannibal Corpse gig at the Underworld? And so from there, the tone of my life was pretty much set, really. You know?
What a call to get to be the you know, the turning point of your young life.
Yeah, it was really. I wasn't that young, to be fair. I was 27 at that point, so, you know, I was a late starter as well, because I'm such an idle sod after I finished school. But anyway, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. But I'm glad you mentioned the House of Commons again, because you kind of brushed by it earlier, and then we ended up back there. And I was going to ask. So, you know, not many people can drop the working at the House of Commons bomb. So what, you know,
it's quite a niche bomb.
It is, isn't it? So what the fuck were you doing there?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I was looking for a decent, half decent job, which was, you know, I'm not qualified to do a lot of things. I'm not interested in a lot of things, but politics is something I've always been interested in, and it seemed like a good thing for somebody with an English degree to, you know, to apply for, because English degree at least confers a certain amount of literacy, and, you know, I must be fairly articulate and all the rest of it, blah blah blah. So I thought, you know, it shouldn't be too hard, and I did get a job there eventually. It took a couple of tries. But it was really just a kind of office job, doing paperwork and filing and data entry and stuff like that. It wasn't particularly interesting. I did get promoted after a year and had the title Executive Officer. And I used to do guided tours of the House of Commons library for MPs and their staff, which was moderately terrifying because I do not like speaking in public at all. Weirdly, not without a bass guitar around my neck. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant because I had, in the past into the House of Commons, they have subsidised lager and stuff, and so it was quite an interesting 2.5 years, really.
Wow, I mean that's one hell of a job to then go to sort of late in life, turn your gaze towards music journalism. I mean, how quickly were you able to give up the day job in the House of Commons and go full time?
Well, it was quite easy, really, because again, it just kind of fell into my lap, really. But I was still working at the House of Commons, and I'd been writing for Kerrang for I don't know, a year maybe. And they offered me, gave me an interview for the news editor's job at Kerrang, which I got. So, so I did that for 2 years, and that was kind of it, really. Once I stopped doing that, for all manner of ghastly reasons, I basically went fully freelance, and I won't pretend that I've ever made a decent living, because I haven't. I really haven't. The perks of the job are fabulous. I know I get lots of free records and all the rest of it. But I think I've only earned more than minimum wage in a year 4 times in 20 years. It's not it's not great. But at the same time, I did manage to just about scrape by. As a freelance music journalist, writing primarily for Kerrang for ages, and then I moved over to Metal Hammer for reasons that were probably more than apparent at the time to people, that Kerrang was becoming even more obsessed with kind of emo bands and all the rest of it, and there wasn't much room for a miserable old prick that I possessed. It was.
Oh well, look, for me, Kerrang was over the minute Oasis were on the cover.
Well, lots of I try not to be too precious about these things, but it's like when you're kind of advertised as one thing, but you open the pages and you get something else. I think it's time to change the name, or
yes,
or,
I was just going to say,
or actually make a new mission statement. But magazines don't do that. They just kind of change stuff, and you have to go along with it. And that in these polarizing times, I think it's a risky thing. But back then it didn't seem so risky, I suppose. Maybe magazines were thriving at that point. So anyway, I moved to Metal Hammer because I wanted to write about metal. Alex Milas was there, and the whole Team Rock thing was about to kick off. Obviously, that ended up being an absolute shit show. But initially it seemed exciting and full of potential. So yeah, I've managed to scrape by with occasional bits of working part time in the office at Metal Hammer, but not anymore. But certainly, they've sustained me at certain points. And writing for a variety of suspect publications and websites, really.
Yeah, well, but like you say, it's you've managed to do earn a living doing something that you enjoy, that has incredible perks, and I speak as a fellow self-employed person that it's rarely the riches that well, certainly in my case, rarely the riches that people think you earn. And it's all about being able to maintain a lifestyle, which means you don't actually have to do much that you don't want to in your life.
Well, that's it. And I currently, this year I've been doing a part-time job to supplement my income, because it's been a tough time the last few years anyway. But obviously, since all this shit kicked off, it's been fairly ruinous for my income as a freelance writer. So now I have 2 jobs, but even that is just about enabling me to have a few days a week when I can do what I want to do, which is, basically sitting around listening to records and then writing about them, smoking as much weed as possible, really. But that's not actually integral to the creative process. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I mean, so have you seen? Did you see an increase in demand for content over lockdown?
No, not particularly. I didn't, but then I guess I'm not. I think it's one of the problems of being middle-aged and complacent is that for a long time I had a regular stream of work from Metal Hammer and the other magazines under the same umbrella. It hasn't evaporated completely this year, but it has certainly decreased significantly. And so, if I hadn't have taken on a part-time job at the beginning of the year, I would be royally fucked at this point. And I think a lot of it is if you've got the energy of a 25-year-old who's just starting out, and you can go to every shitty gig, or watch every shitty live stream, or do all the little bits of work that accumulate to make you a half decent pay packet, then that's fine. But I'm fucked and old, and it's kind of. I don't know. I'd rather do something to earn some money on the side, so that I could do the bits of the music journalism job that I actually enjoy, rather than having to, go and hang around at the upstairs at the garage on a Tuesday night watching some god awful metalcore band.
Yeah, that's not the dream job.
It's not, no. And to be honest, I'm such a miserable prick. People are going to hate me, but I don't even enjoy live shows that much anymore. I'm really selective about gigs I go to these days. Partly because I'm it's an anxiety issue, and not wanting to be out in massive crowds of people. But it's also, I don't enjoy live shows as much as I want to meet as much as I would like to a lot of the time. Depends if it is, of course. There are some bands that turn me into a 13-year-old idiot, and that's that will always be the case, But I try to focus on the things that excite me, and that has always been records, really. As much as I love gigs, and I've been to loads of amazing gigs that I'll never forget, but it's the records that stay with me for some reason. I don't know if that makes me more or less nerdy.
Well, the thing is that ultimately it's about a love of music, what you do, and you're in a band as well, so you see kind of both sides of that, and presumably over the years as well, you've seen a very the job of a music journal. Yeah, once upon a time, you used to get flown to places and review a band or just hang out with them for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I miss those days, and I wasn't even doing the fucking job.
Yes, no, I do miss that. I mean, again, I think I'm so, I'm not a pensioner or anything, but I'm 48 in a couple of weeks, and it does get to the point where going to America for 2 days is going to be physically brutal, and you feel terrible for it. You know what I mean? It's like it's okay when you're 27 because you drink your way through it.
True. and
you sleep off to get back. But now I know it's not worth the physical effort unless it's hanging out with Ozzy Osbourne or Judas Priest or something that I'm really you can't turn down. But back in the day, I've done all kinds of weird things, being sent to all kinds of bizarre places.
What was the most bizarre place you were sent to?
Oh, God, I wish I hadn't said that now, because now I've got to remember something.
I know. And it was just such an obvious... If I hadn't asked that question, everyone listening to the podcast was like, oh, you fucking idiot, you should have asked him. What was the most bizarre? I'll tell you what, I can tell you, it's not, in terms of where it wasn't the most bizarre, but the one and only time that I've been to Iceland, which everyone who goes there goes, oh, you've got to go to Iceland, it's amazing, go and check out all the crazy scenery and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I went there. I did see Björk at the airport. She tripped over someone's suitcase. That was kind of funny. But apart from that, I spent the entire day and a half sat in a backstage part of an arena because I don't know if you remember, there's a band called Minus from Iceland that did quite a lot of stuff in the early noughties, I guess. Were quite popular over here, and they were supporting Metallica in this huge sport arena. It was massive. Yeah.
Something like 3% of the entire population of the country was at this gig. It was phenomenal, and even though it was on the St. Anger tour, so it wasn't justice for all and Anna's Zinodium, let me tell you. But still, it was a massive show in Iceland, and we spent the entire time. We weren't allowed out of the backstage area, of course, because we weren't allowed to breathe the same rarefied air as James and Lars, of course. And they commandeered, I think, all of the other backstage rooms, for various things, massage parlours and, I don't know, crying rooms or whatever, who knows. Not a practice room, obviously, not for Lars, hey, right, kids? But yeah, that was the weirdest, because I just sat indoors. It was like sitting inside a sports centre for 2 days.
Why 2 days? Was it? You have to cover? Were they playing 2 nights and you had to cover both?
Well, yeah, we were there. That was where everything was based. So that was where the support band were. So we turned up there to interview the support band, and we just hung around with them on the first day, and then because it was being set up the day before, as Metallica gigs often are, I imagine. And then the following day, it was literally from 10 in the morning, sat around in this backstage area. I did my interview with the band by about midday, and then you're just sitting around drinking pissy lager and craving sunlight,
Yeah, that's not exactly the story that people come back from Iceland with.
No, not really. It was really. I mean, and I seem to remember we drove to the airport quite early in the morning. It was still. I don't know if it was dark or what. We couldn't see much. Do you know what I mean? Wasn't anything on the route that made you go, "Oh, we're in Iceland." It's like the cover of Echo and the Bunnymen's Porcupine. Amazing. You know, there was none of that. It was just a long road and an airport. You know.
And I mean, I'm presuming you've covered Metallica before. Was that kind of a sort of change to the norm? Although you weren't really covering them this time, were you? So hence you got support. No, you got support band treatment, basically, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Which everybody knows is fucking shocking. You know, even at that level, you know. Particularly if I'm sure if Metallica know a band personally, then it's not like that. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure that people get treated very well, but I think. Some journalist that's interviewing the support band isn't going to get treated like a king, and nor should I. You know, that's absolutely fine. But I just didn't want to sit in a fucking sports centre for 2 days. That's all.
It also sounds like a move having them on the bill as well in that part of the world to shift some tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a win-win for everybody. You know, except for music journalists. You know, I did get to see Metallica, so you know that's always a sort of partial thrill, I suppose. I can't remember whether the show was any good or not. I think they might have possibly been going through a ropey phase at that stage, but I was probably drinking heavily, so it could have sounded a lot better to me at the time than it actually was. It's hard to know, really.
True. I mean, you must have interviewed them plenty over the years, though.
Less than you'd imagine, actually. It's almost as if they've been kept away from me. No, they have. No, they genuinely haven't, because James Hetfield just doesn't do many interviews, you know. And when those do come along, I just missed out, you know. And that's fair enough. I have interviewed Lars 3 or 4 times. I've certainly interviewed Kirk a few times, and I've spoken to the lovely Rob a few times. You know, he's a very nice man. I don't think I've ever done a sit-down interview with Metallica, though, which is odd, because out of all the, you know, I've done all the other big ones, you know, but they're the ones that I've done the least of, I think, really. But honestly, they're the band I'm least passionate about of all the big ones. So at this stage in the game.
So who are you passionate about then? Because we've had the realism of lockdown, Dom. Now let's have these bands are why I'm still alive, Dom.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing, I always end up saying horrible things about Metallica for something. Don't mean to. It just.
Don't worry. You didn't say anything horrible. You were just honest. There was nothing horrible in there.
Well, that's it. I just, you know, I'm not. Obviously, don't want to kick anything off about it. It's just one of those things. I loved Metallica with all my heart for the first 7 years of their existence. You know, and they've done nothing since then that I love. That's all. You know, they've done some things I've liked, but I just don't love them. I just haven't loved them for 30 years. You know, and so. Unless they're suddenly going to make an album that gives me the same buzz that Master of Puppets did, then I just have to say I'm not really a fan these days. It's just one of those things, you know. I thought the last album was quite good. Do you know what I mean? It was the best one they've done for a long time. But,
well, let's get that on the fucking poster.
You know,
the last, you could just see it on the hard one. Yeah, Dom Lawson, quite good.
Lovely stuff for Radio Times. Yeah. Yeah, it was all right, do you know what I mean? But I haven't listened to it since it came out. I listened to it 3 or 4 times at the time. Whereas, when Megadeth put a new album out, or Creator put a new album out, particularly, you know, that gets absolutely rinsed in the car. Or
Acid Rain put a new album out, eh?
Acid, right, fuck me, mate. Yeah, I buy 2 copies, 1 for each hit. You know, which is always my approach with records I love, of course.
Of course. No, I just wanted to. That was a way of just me sort of subtly thanking you for your very positive review.
No, it's a killer record, mate. You know, I was a fan back in the day, and it's one of those things when, you know, it was the same with when Zetrix came back with the new record. You know, you kind of go, oh God, I was 18 when I used to go and see them. You know, with my denim jacket on and my high tops and everything. You know, my high techs.
So did new music from old bands, as in the two of us who haven't been around for years, that reminded you of your teenage years, but it's new music. Did it still trigger those old feelings?
I mean, that's what you. I mean, yes, it did, on both counts for sure. But that's what I think. I tried to stay a fan. You know, I'm not I don't see myself as anything. I'm just a bloke that writes about music he likes, and I find attention for doing that weird and uncomfortable. But one thing I've never lost is the ability to listen to things as a fan of music. I'm not trying to be clever, you know. I just want to. Does it make me want to put my fist through the wall? You know, does it make me want to drive my car over the roundabout and into someone's front garden? You know, it's that kind of thing. And the bands that I loved when I was 18 and I had energy and adrenaline and things like that, and had all the joy of life kicked out of me, that stuff still does the job now. Do you know what I mean? I still listen to, you know, Rain in Blood or Seven Churches or, you know, Darkness Descends or any of the King Diamond albums from the 80s, and they make me feel 10 foot tall, you know. And so when a band like, you know, you guys come back with something new, or Deadfix come back with something new, or, you know, Andy Sneap starts doing new music with, you know, with Hell or whatever, you know, or Priest, you know, when that turns out to be really, really good, I think that's almost like double. It's double good, because it kind of confirms you were right the first time round, and it gives you a fresh supply of ammunition, you know.
Oh, that's really cool. That is really cool. And I've hijacked this part of the interview, so let's get back to the question I asked, which is, you said, you know, Metallica were the least band, the band that you were least sort of bothered about, the big ones. So who are the big ones you are bothered about that, you know, you've got to meet and work with over the years?
Well, Maiden, obviously, number one.
Yes.
Because they're the greatest heavy metal band of all time, and I'm not interested in any other opinion, really. That's, you know, fuck off, basically. It's just one of those things. They're the best. They're the best live band. They've never let people down, even during the the much maligned Blaze Bailey years. You went to see Iron Maiden play a show and they'd rip your face off. You know, it wasn't. They've never been shit. And even though some albums are better than others, you know, and they've had weak points along the decades, Iron Maiden have really never let people down. You know, and they're really, you know, almost annoyingly nice people. Which is, you know, they say never meet your heroes, but in the case of Iron Maiden, might as well, because they're really nice, you know. Yeah. You know, Steve's an absolute gentleman, you know, and we're talking about somebody I've idolised since I was, you know, 12 or whatever, and he's just an ordinary bloke who happens to be, you know, a musical genius and the captain of the ship, you know, and Bruce is everything you'd want him to be. So, you know, like, they will always be number one for me. You know, they always treat everybody incredibly well, and their reputation goes before them. You know, everybody knows that. You know, so it's you know, they don't talk to the press unless they want to, unless they've got something to say. And don't we all wish more bands would take that approach?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, a lot of stuff that that Bruce does with his airline. Don't get reported that people wish they'd let him report.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He's not, you know, he would be the first to admit he's got a giant ego. He's the singer in a heavy metal band, of course he has. But they're not a showy bunch. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of good things going on behind the scenes, and money being raised for charity and all kinds of good stuff going on. But they're not going to shout about because there's no need. You know, and like I say, I don't know. There's just something special about Maiden, and there always has been for me. And it's not just Jim will fix it and all that. You know, you go to their shows and his family, and everybody in that room, their favourite band is Iron Maiden. You know, and that's simply not true of other big bands. You know, you go and see AC/DC or Metallica. Yeah, there'll be loads of diehards there, but there'll also be a load of people eating prawn sandwiches. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. The corporates. Yeah. Well,
like Guns N' Roses at Download the other year. You know, it was great. I really enjoyed it, but I was surrounded by a lot of people drinking chilled white wine out of little bottles. You know, it's a bit fucking weird, mate. I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit too Glastonbury. But was
there was a bit too much coke going on that day, I think.
I'm really interested, right? Was there, in this particular moment, it might not exist, was there a particular moment where you interviewed one or all of Iron Maiden and one of them went, hang on, have we met you before? Hang on, are you that kid from Jim will fix it?
The remarkable thing about that band and that organisation is that as soon as my name popped up in Kerrang, there was an email was exchanged and it was acknowledged that yes, it was me, and hello from Iron Maiden, and it's lovely to see you doing this and that.
Oh wow!
And so by the first time I interviewed them, it was like, oh Dom, how the devil are you? We remember you, you know, and you know, Nico slapping me on the back and all this, you know, and
oh, that's awesome.
I mean, imagine even today I struggle when I hang out with them above all bands. Not because they're lovely people to be around, but inside I'm going, it's fucking Iron Maiden. I'm hanging out with fucking Iron Maiden. Fuck me. It's I've never lost that. You stick on Power Slave and I get goosebumps. It doesn't matter where I am.
But that's brilliant, because it's kind of like them sort of welcoming an insider, somebody they sort of helped infuse along the way as a kid.
Well, that's it. Look, I had a conversation with Steve in a bar once in in America somewhere. It's a terrible clang name dropping, but it was after some interview I'd done, and we were just sat there chatting away, and out of the blue he just kind of said, "Look, you know what? We really appreciate the fact you've been a fan for all this time, Dom. Cheers. Do you want another drink?" And it wasn't making a big thing of it, but inside I was just like doing the happiest dance of all time, But it's they do appreciate people's loyalty. Like I say, that's why Iron Maiden, when they come back, they don't bring a half-assed show. When they release an album, it's not some bunch of shitty songs they've not bashed out. You get what you pay for. You get value for money with Iron Maiden always,
Yeah, I mean,
I know that, although that's easy for me to say, of course, because I get a lot of stuff for free. So yeah,
Yeah, so it's definitely value for money for you, isn't it? For fuck's sake.
It's a fucking bargain, mate. Yeah.
So have you been? You mentioned Priest as well. Are they one of your faves?
Rob Halford is one of the loveliest people on earth. I think that's obvious, though, isn't it? Isn't that obvious from everything he does?
Well,
and his social media presence alone makes you. How can you not adore that?
True. I mean, he has got like basically cross genre appeal, not just metal, but just like if you like people in bands and you follow music, you'd go, that guy's seems to be a nice bloke.
He's brilliant, and he's so down to earth. I mean, that's the thing with the British bands, which is less true of American bands in general, but. I don't want to generalise completely, but certainly the old school British bands are all just really normal people, who happened to get lucky when the first wave of these things came along, really. I mean, not that Iron Maiden were in any way lucky, because, of course, they were better than everybody else. But, Black Sabbath don't see them. They didn't have this master plan to invent heavy metal and become a band that played in arenas. It was just 4 Bergs from Birmingham, And you sense, when I've met Rob and, the other members of Priest and interviewed Ozzy and people like that, you get the sense, there's a very strong sense that they are still feeling that way. They've never, ever become those cunts that, think that the world owes it to them in some way, They feel, I hate to use the word blessed because it has religious connotations, but they do feel blessed by circumstance, which makes them easy people to like. In real life.
And also I think when people and this is not, I'm not specifying anybody or any particular band, but when bands have been together for a very, very, very long time and it's towards the twilight of their career and lineup changes start happening, that's usually because somebody is getting a bit fucking, I deserve this or we deserve that, and being a bit demanding, and everybody else is still grounded and going, this is not happening.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not always the case, but I think if you look at bands that have had the same lineup for a long time, it speaks volumes about how well things must be run behind the scenes.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily the band members that are facilitating that, that enduring sense of goodwill between all men, but someone is, and that you can see it in Iron Maiden. They've always had their differences in the past, but since they came back in 2000 with that lineup, it's harmony, isn't it? And not across words, and so you just think, well, brilliant. Same with Priest, now that they've, it's such a terrible shame about Glenn that he's not, that he's unwell, but they just cracked on, didn't they, really? It's brilliant. Fantastic for Priest band, the way things are at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Andy's going to definitely be involved in the production, whether or not he's involved in writing or anything like that. We'll have to wait and see. But I mean, that was amazing to see. I WhatsApped him as soon as the news went live, and it was 5 minutes of us sending emojis back to each other.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, absolutely. And I've had many conversations with Andy over the years, and most of them have referenced Judas Priest at some point. It's just one of those What is he? A couple of years older than me, but we're all roughly the same age, aren't we? And it's that kind of generation of we grew up in the 80s with the proper metal, and it never leaves you. It's just. I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, which I think probably makes me massively out of touch with the way magazines are directed these days. But I find it almost more exciting when an old band makes great new music than when I hear a new band making great music. There's something really satisfying about a New Testament album ripping your face off.
Do you know what? You might be onto something there.
Yeah,
you really
there's
might.
A value to it,
There's that's a definite, and it's obviously it's a definite sort of time of life thing. And I mean, we're very, our ages are quite close together. I'm 50, so a little bit older than you. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I mean, I was blown away with Book of Souls, for instance. Yeah. And I was just like, it's a double album, and it's like the amount of double albums that I even like is tiny, because there's very, very few double albums that don't leave you with the feeling of this shouldn't have been a double fucking album.
Yeah, no, very true. Yeah. Particularly in metal, it lends itself to progressive rock, in some ways, which has got that, that limitless kind of influences and all the rest of it. But in metal, no one needs a 2-hour metal album. It's not. It's not necessary.
Yeah, and do you know what? There's a band or an album tickling at the back of my brain that came out within the last year or so by a band, and I was like, fucking hell, that's got to be one of their best ever albums. All these years. Yeah. Oh, actually, I tell you who it is. Bloody hell, Sepultura this year.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely, mate. 100% agree. Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's you play Chaos AD and then you play that afterwards, and you go, that works.
Yeah, it totally holds up, doesn't it? And I think honestly, it's made. I hope it's made a lot of people go back and listen to some of the other albums they've made with Derek, because I think the amount of kind of myopic horse shit I've heard people talk about Sepultura over the years. That, it's not the same, and I hope they reform and all this. And it's do fuck off. They've made lots of great music with Derek. That lineup has been around much longer than the one with Max ever was, and they're a fucking ripping live band. And that new album, finally, they've got some recognition for being that good. It's I don't know why it's taken so long. Really, it's weird. The album before was killer. So Machine Messiah. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the guitarist in our band, Paul, has never been able to. The new Sepultura has never clicked for him, and I just said, look, just dig your heels in, and really, really, go for Quadra and see what you can do with it. And he came back to me, he was like, I still can't get my head around it. And then about 3 months later, I just got a message going, oh yeah, Quadra, fucking amazing. I'm onto Machine Messiah now.
Brilliant. There you go. Yeah, work your way backwards, because there's not all the albums are not consistent necessarily, but there's great stuff on all of them, I would say.
I think I'm thinking as far back as Rawback. Rawback's got a real. It's ripping, basically, that album.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah. I saw them. Where was it last year? They did a launch for the new album, like a preview thing, and they played a gig in Paris, in this tiny little venue. And these guys are older than me, and apart from the drummer, who's like about 15, and it was just savage, and they were brilliant, and it was quite euphoric. And I just thought, I do wish people would stop wallowing in the past about these things. It's a bit tragic, You can go and see Max playing Sepultura albums all the way through anyway, can't you? If you're that desperate, off you pop,
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I'm a fan of Max as well, but just if I had to choose one or the other, I'd choose Sepultura, because they're moving forward, aren't they? And that's exciting for a band that's been around that long.
Well, Sepultura without Max have made more albums I like than Soulfly have made albums that I like.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's a fair comment. I mean, again, there's lots of Soulfly stuff that I like, but I don't find it's. I don't know, another Soulfly album is another Soulfly album, and it's great, and I enjoy listening to it loud in the car. I don't find myself going back to them very much, whereas particularly the last two Sepultura albums, they've been absolutely rinsed.
But yeah, well, for me, I mean, Soulfly is the Conqueror album, and then pretty much nothing else.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool, that's very selective.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is, isn't it? But to be fair, I've only really liked 2 albums of Sepultura without Max, and that's Raw, Back, and Quadra.
You see, but that's it. And this is why it always makes me laugh when people get kick off because I give something a bad review. So if you've even vaguely followed my writing or read the magazines that I've written for years and years and years, I'm overwhelmingly positive about things. I'm probably more positive about metal than anybody else. You know, so the occasional kicking is just I've got to let off steam sometimes. Come on.
Yeah, of course.
It's only fair, isn't it? You know,
well, yeah,
and for my Valentine don't release an album every week, do they? So you know, take it off. You know.
But but you've got Kill the Lights to fill the gap.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not going to be rude about that because I have been listening to it, but also because I spoke with Moose once and he was quite a nice chap. But you know, whatever. Well,
look, mate, you've
it's probably not aimed at me, is it? Let's be honest.
Well, to be honest, mate, you know, you battered my favourite album of the year so far. So you know, it's all about
Well, Striper.
No. No, okay, so battering is a bit hard. I read the review in Kerrang and it was for Protest the Hero, Palimpsest.
Oh, I didn't write that.
Yeah, I know, it's my favourite album of the year.
Yeah. No, I said I didn't write it. I don't think I've reviewed that.
Oh, you didn't write it? Sorry, I thought you said you didn't like. Are you sure? Hang on,
of
course you're sure. Okay, my addled brain has decided that you wrote that, so I'm sorry.
Unless I wrote it without realising it. I mean, who knows? Which would probably explain why I've clearly got my response so wrong. I'm pretty sure I didn't review that.
Well, I'll tell you what. At some point during the interview, while you're doing a long answer, I'll look it up on the internet, and if it is you,
please call me out if I'm talking.
No, absolutely. I tell you what, I'm really excited now because if it is you, I'm going to give you double the fucking shit.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely.
but again, it is just personal taste. But and you know that Sepultura example is an absolutely obvious one, especially in metal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people where it's like, you know, oh no, I stopped listening after the Max left. You know, tried, didn't like Derek, and it's like, yeah, but that's 20 years ago. Oh yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe give them another try now. You know, you might learn something. I don't know. I know people. You know, we can all sit here all day going, well, each to their own, and people are entitled to do this and that. But I'm quite into being a cheerleader for people. You know, and it kind of bugs me when bands have been around for a long time. Paradise Lost's a great example as well. You know, and they will get some media coverage, but not what they deserve. You know, they've just released 3 of the best albums they've ever made. You know, like I would put those up against any of the early classics. You know, they're absolutely fantastic records, but they're not really being celebrated as one of our greatest bands in the metal media in this country. You know, and I find that weird.
Yeah,
and it's because they've been around for so long and they didn't stop and do a comeback, or you know, or completely change just to piss everybody off. Well, actually, they did that in the late 90s, but you know.
Well, that's the manic. That's what the Manic Street Preachers. I saw him in an interview, and it was I think it was the first person to refer to it and say, yeah, you see, the mistake we've made is never splitting up.
Yeah, that's it.
He said
because you're not cool anymore. You know, you familiarity breeds contempt and all that, and it's just kind of, you know, the thing I've noticed over 20 years that obviously, you know. When I started working at Kerrang, Phil Alexander was still there, you know. So
yeah,
big magazines are run by a completely different generation of people now, and of course they are, quite rightly so. You know, you want old bastards running the magazines forever because they'll never appeal to younger people. I get that, you know. But perspective is completely different these days. You know, that's just something you have to you just have to take on board. The older I get, the less connected to. The kind of media consensus I am, really, I suppose, but that's all right. There's loads of us miserable pricks about, isn't there?
Not quite as miserable as you, Dom. You've pointed out there something that actually is very true. That was at the heart, for me, in my theory, is at the heart of the collapse of the music industry, which happened whether people choose to believe that or not, it's the fact that you were talking about, magazines run by a load of old bastards, and unfortunately, what we had record companies run by a load of old bastards, and all of them, most of them were in denial. But even if they did get it and realise what the future was, I'm only here. I've got 5-10 years to eke out here, and I'm going to defend my quality of life until that point. And every record company did the same thing. They just dug their heels in and tried to maintain their current way of life, their current earning power. And it was coming from the top down, because we don't, they didn't give a shit about where the company would be in 20 years or whether the market would be in 20 years. All they were interested in was just looking after number one.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think there was an air of petulance to it, really. you know?
Well, as I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Record companies suing people for illegally downloading music. When you start taking your customers to court, it's over.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, quite. And then look at, and they all sat on their hands for years while the streaming services got their shit together, and then there was absolutely nothing they could do when that happened, And yes, all the bands are getting screwed now. I get that, it's awful and all the rest of it, but, you should have seen it coming. I don't know why. Obviously I didn't see it coming. It's not my job to see it coming, but but the record industry was warned in advance. This is not a secret when it happens.
Absolutely, and who thought the canary in the coal mine would be fucking Lars Ulrich?
Well, that's it, and also at the same time, I think it's worth just for my prog brothers and sisters out there, it's worth mentioning that Marillion invented fucking crowdfunding. And, paved the way for a whole new way of doing things. A bunch of old farts playing one of the most unfashionable bands on earth at that point. Invented the future.
Well, don't get me started. I mean, if you thought you got giddy when Steve Harris offered to buy you a pint, imagine how I felt when I was sat next to Fish and he was eating his soup and he asked me if I wanted a bowl.
Amazing. I mean, being offered soup by Fish, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it wasn't fish soup before you ask.
No, he's not a cannibal.
But mate, I know exactly what you mean. But you're right. Look, you look at the business and you just think, well, look at the way everyone listens to their music. None of it is owned by a record label. Record labels have failed to innovate completely within the digital space, and they now don't have a chance to do it. It's owned. It's gone. That battle was lost. You are now on the outside. Yeah, totally. Of course, I always think that one of the good things, very few good things that has come out of it really is that now loads of labels having to remaster and re-release everything in lovely swanky box sets and shit, and I love all that. So I do like it, but do you know what? There's two things I want to ask you, and I want to grab them in quickly because I've got a bunch of questions from subscribers to ask you. So, amazing. Two questions. Firstly, where do you stand on bands who now own the rights or don't earn anything off the original, now deciding to re-record an old album with modern production? And
I mean, honestly, I don't have any issue with it at all. I think it's fair enough. I think if you then present, this is a new version of this, it doesn't erase the old version. You can listen to whichever one you want. But if by recording a new version of that, the band can release it and make some money, I'm not sure how anyone could complain. I'm sure people will complain about that,
Well, no, do you know what?
Like when Exodus re-recorded Bonded by Blood with Rob Duke singing, and it sounded different, had a modern production, and people went, "Oh, why have you done that?" I said, "We don't have to fucking listen to it. What you on about?"
Yeah, I mean, as a musician, I guess I'm over, and well, I know you are as well, but I guess I'm just a bit oversensitive about just the concept of it, and it's like, why would you do that? Yeah. And are you ruining the original? And I remember hearing a movie critic saying, look, I know everyone goes on about they shouldn't remake that and they shouldn't remake that, and I said, look, let's get one thing clear: no matter what movie gets remade, the old one doesn't get deleted.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to think, really. I think
Yeah. I've learned that through talking to you.
Yeah, well, it's just, it's not, I mean, for a lot of bands, it's not something they'll ever want to do, and I totally appreciate why, but I can see it, particularly when people are getting ripped off, or when people are kind of stranded without the rights to their own their own creativity. You know, that for whatever reason, whether they signed stupid contracts when they were young, or whether there's something malevolent going on, or just bad fortune or whatever. But I don't see any reason why. Yeah, it doesn't supersede anything, does it? You know, it's like Machine Head re-recorded "Burn My Eyes" in the studio just as a thing, and have released it on vinyl. You know, as a kind of, I suppose, a way to promote the reunion tour and all that kind of thing. And it's fine, you know, it's brilliant. It rips, but it doesn't make any difference to the fact that the first album is the one I'm much more likely to listen to the original. You know, and I don't think Rob's going to get upset about that. Do you know what I mean?
True. And the other question I really wanted to ask you was, have you ever been asked to sort of co-write an autobiography or ghost write anything like that?
I've had a couple of offers over the years. Honestly, I feel like such a failure when I talk about this because I've never done it, and I've turned down a few things over the years. I've done a couple. I did a thing with Opeth where it was basically just interviewing them a lot and transcribing it, putting it into a story for a thing called the Opeth book, the Book of Opeth that they put out a few years ago, like a coffee table thing for mega fans. You know, that was quite satisfying. And there's a book in the recent Venom box set that I did that's like just, you know, again, just extended interviews really. But I've never actually written a book, and to be honest, partly it's because because of my somewhat ropey mental health, I'm quite worried about committing myself to long-term projects. It's not something that I'm particularly keen on. But also because there's an awful lot of shit books out there, isn't there? And I've always felt that I'm not sure that I want to add to that by bashing out some unauthorised biography of somebody that really didn't want you to write. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a bit...
Yeah, no, I understand all those reasons, but I'm then going to trample all over them with Steve Harris wants you to write his autobiography with him.
Yeah, no, I'd bite his hand off. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Right, okay. Brilliant.
You know, there are people that I would do it for, you know, and they're usually people it's going to sound really wanky, but there's a handful of people that I know personally that I've got a good relationship with those bands, and if they wanted me to write something, I would, you know, just because it would be almost impossible to say no without looking like a dick, you know. I'd be like, why am I saying no to this? This is mental. You know? But it's not many people, you know. It doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't appeal to me. I should do more writing, really. But like I say, it's I don't know. The thing I enjoy doing most is writing about music, and not so much trying to pad out someone's fairly feeble career with, you know, brilliant anecdotes about the day Dimebag threw up in their shoes or whatever. You know, it's kind of... those books are great. You read them once and then you never read them again, unless it's like Al Jorgensen's book or something like that, when you've got actual stories that make your hair fall out, you know.
But when that was kind of why I wanted to know, because I know you were saying how, look, I just write about music and I'm passionate about it and that's what I enjoy doing, and I was just wondering whether whether a book that takes you away from what you're doing, although still involved in the subject, you know, appealed at all, because, you know, I kind of get that basically.
Yeah, no, it does appeal. And it's one of those things where, you know, I probably thought 20 years ago, well, yeah, at some point I'd like to do that. And now, you know, 20 years later, I'm still thinking, yeah, maybe at some point I'd like to do that, you know. And I'll probably be on my deathbed going, I probably should have written the book, never mind, you know. But I will do at some point, I think. It's just knowing what it is, you know, and finding the thing that makes me think, yes, there you go. And it's not really popped up, you know, and the things I've been offered, I've been asked to do have usually been a little bit outside of anything I'm hugely excited about, if that makes sense. You know, just things connected. I was asked once to write a book on the new wave of British heavy metal, you know, or to at least, you know, kind of make a bid to write it. And in the end, I thought, you know what, I don't think I want to do that. I don't think I'm passionate enough about the new wave of British heavy metal as much as I love Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no point, if I'm not passionate about something, I won't do it properly. I'd rather not do it than do something half-assed. So, and the money doesn't appeal anyway, because books are, you know, it's a lot of work for not a massive amount of money when you're putting it out through some independent publisher and selling it to, you know, whoever, Dream Theater fans or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's,
yes.
You're not talking about. It's not a publishing deal from a big publisher. It's, you know, it's a few grand for writing a lot of words, you know, and I'm actually quite lazy as well. The weed might have something to do with that, though. You know, it makes you realise the futility of a lot of tasks. it's a magical substance.
Yeah, well, that was the Bill Hicks line, wasn't it? It doesn't affect your motivation. It just makes you realise it's not fucking worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, look, mate. I've got a load of subscriber questions, so don't go anywhere. And if you were a patron, you would now get your second Bollocast, and you'd hear all the questions that you asked Dom answered by the man himself. So, patreon.com/Howard H. Smith if you want to sign up and keep the podcast going. Just $5 a month helps me, keeps the lights on at Talking Bollocks Towers over here. But anyway, I wanted to recommend, by the way, yeah, great interview, top man, hope you really enjoyed it. Not going to keep talking about the interview, you've just heard it, there's really no need to break it down, is there, at all. Some great albums have come out, and I feel like I'm still hammering Empire of the Blind by Heathen. If you haven't heard that yet, you do need to get yourself some Empire of the Blind down your ears. Have a good old listen, seriously. I'm still smashing the hell out of... what am I saying? I'm smashing the fuck out of Protest the Hero, Palimpsest, fantastic album. Still loving the Lamb of God album after pretty much hating everything they've ever done. Really like it. Those two albums, Palimpsest by Protest the Hero and Lamb of God by Lamb of God, they are my lockdown albums. They're the albums that I was just listening to constantly. And whenever I play songs from them, they will always remind me of this sort of period of time that we're in at the moment. So, yeah, probably never play them again then. Also, the new Haken, well, I say new this year, Virus by Haken. Now, yeah, prophetically named, because it wasn't named once we knew this shit was going on. Really good album. Very proggy, very technical, but they really have a sound of their own, and I urge you to check it out. The first two tracks had me. Prosthetic and Invasion, two songs off the new album, just absolutely had me, so go and check them out. New Devil Driver. Gotta love a bit of Devil Driver, haven't you, really? I mean, they're the boys. As some of you know, I'm a bit of a Devil Driver fan, and yeah, it's Dealing with Demons. It is out now. It's a really good album, and there's different stuff in there. It's not just a standard Devil Driver album, although I would have to say that Ohms, the new Deftones album, for me is, I don't know, I'm still struggling to get into it. So I'm not gonna. It's just all on a level at the moment. For me, there's nothing that really stands out that's making me go, fucking hell. There's no songs that I can't wait for. It's just all very much on a level. And that level is good, but it never breaks out from that and becomes great. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I also have Weltschmerz, the last ever Fish album. It's 84 minutes long. It has 10 songs. And the best way I can describe it is that it is beautifully boring. And I've just got to move on from there. And there's two other albums that are just really, really fucking doing it for me at the moment. And one of them is utterly bizarre, and it's The Hell, and it's a hardcore opera. Yep, that's right. You heard what I said. It's a hardcore opera called Joris, and apparently this is part one. But The Hell have pulled it out of the bag. It's a really, really interesting project, and it sounds fucking cool, I have to say. And some of you are going to laugh at me. I have never got into Necrophobic before, but I am now. New album, Dawn of the Damned. Fucking classic death metal. Absolutely loving it. Really, really loving it. So hopefully there's a few tips there. If you're struggling for new tunes at the moment, I do a monthly radio show called Radio Bollocks on Patreon, and yeah, if you sign up there, you get that as well, and you get to hear all this shit. But anyway, look, it just remains for me to say thank you so much. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. It is always great being in your ears. It really is. And I appreciate the support. I appreciate the patrons. I appreciate the bollockers. I appreciate the Acid Rain fans. I appreciate the Motorhead fans and the Motorcast fans. If there's any Motorcast fans coming here for the first time, hello! Wow. You made it to the end. And the second wow, you didn't mind all the cunting swearing. Fuck me. Hope you enjoyed it. But look, seriously, when we get back to doing gigs again, I am going to get back to you guys, getting you guys to shout out bollocks at live shows. And then if you hear somebody shout bollocks, then they shout bollocks back. And then you both shout talking bollocks. It's lame, isn't it? But fucking hell, wouldn't that be awesome if we could get that going now? No, because there's no shows, Howard. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's all about being positive and looking forwards. That's all we can do at this stage. Well, that's what I'm trying to do anyway. Look, it's always a pleasure doing this. It's 7 years. It's 7 years since I started doing this. I mean, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And I still enjoy it. Still meeting lots of great people and still having a great time doing it. So once again, look, guys, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing. If you're riding your bike, you're in your car, you're driving a train, you're stacking some shelves in a supermarket, you're in a supermarket doing the shopping. Whatever you're doing, you're at work. If you're at work, remember, howard@allabouttherock.co.uk. Send me an email just titled work. Send it from your work account. Pop that email in. They've been coming in, they're dribs and drabs, and they do make me laugh because it's just every time I get one, it just reminds me that somebody's been listening to this at work, and it just makes me smile. And the thing is, I know that there's going to be, like, in years to come, I'm going to get an email and it'll just be titled work, and I'll be like, Christ, someone's listening to those episodes for the first time back from when we were in lockdown. But anyway, guys, look, I'm waffling because I don't want it to end, because I love you. I love every one of you. Oh, I do. I'm a big-hearted guy. What can I say? You're all welcome. You're welcome round here anytime. But the patrons get the beds, so rest of you will have to be on the floor. Anywho, and not allowed more than 6. Fucking hell. It's time to stop the podcast. I'm waffling. Thanks a lot, guys. There'll be another one this month towards the end of the month, and you might be able to figure out who it's with. Speak to you then.